Hello, hello everyone. Hello dear subscribers, dear supporters, whether you're watching this on Facebook or whether you're watching this on YouTube later. I want to welcome you to this edition of a walk down memory lane of Bernando's New York City book tour, which occurred in June of 2013 when he was about to publish his second book called Beyond 100, How to Live Well into Your Second Century. So, as I mentioned earlier, this was actually going to be an e-book publication because the cutting technology of the time, of course, was the iPad, and Apple gave authors an opportunity to publish their books in a digital format. And so to promote the book, we brought Bernando to New York City, with the help and the assistance of so many people and a lot of the supporters and the subscribers right here on this page, 13 years ago now. So if you look in the description, or the discussion section, I should say, of this video, I posted the calendar for the week because I thought that would be helpful. Now, I'm not the best at Google Docs, so you're going to notice a discrepancy there where it says that we went to the baseball game on the Sunday, but in fact, we went on Saturday. We went on the previous day. The article that came out in the Daily News was published on the Sunday. Anyway, all this to say, hopefully this clarifies things for you. It was really an internal document. It was really something for me and my brother and my grandfather, to kind of keep track of where we were. So the document wasn't originally intended for anyone else to see it except for us. So this is kind of a late night video because it has been so hot today in New York, so hot that I actually just had to wait until the sun went down in order to be able to do this installment. So that's the reason why I'm doing this at 9:30 at night instead of an earlier hour. Although for those of you who are watching this, maybe watching this on Facebook from the West Coast, it's going to be around dinner time for you. All right, so I want to, just talk briefly about what Bernando's schedule was like on this day. And also, in retrospect, just marvel at the fact that his book, Beyond 100, How to Live Well into Your Second Century, it wasn't just a book title. It was something that he was living right during this tour, and that he was demonstrating the principles of his lifestyle and the benefits of his lifestyle, in real time, as we say today. So you'll notice if you look on the calendar, the booking or the first appearance that he had in earnest on the Monday, that would be Monday, June 3rd, 2013, following the day of rest that we had on Sunday after all the excitement of the Yankees game on the Saturday, is that there is an 11 a.m. appearance scheduled to be on a radio program that was called Talking Alternatives Radio. And I guess you could say the undersigner, or the overarching LLC producer of this radio show was an outfit called Double Diamond Wellness. And the host of our show was a gentleman whose first name was Sam. I am not quite sure of what Sam's last name is, and so I don't just want to say what I think off the top of my head, because I want to be, accurate. But needless to say, that Sam was the host of this radio show, and his radio show, it would run about, I feel like we were there for about 2 hours. So they were located on the Upper West Side. We got off at, or we were dropped off, I should say, about think it was 72nd Street. And we made our way, up into the studio. So I want to give a shout out to Josefa Vincent, who was the person, who made this connection and helped us make this, booking for Bernando to speak, and have this conversation and be interviewed. And then myself as well, was kind of along for that. Later on, I will post some photos of what it was like when we were in the studio and also when we were leaving the studio. So at this point in time, we were still staying at the Sanctuary on the Lower East Side, and I think this was about maybe the third time we had moved. So we were staying in, I think it was called the Vishnu Loft, and it was at 73 East 3rd Street. And so, as was Bernando's routine, he arose, he bathed, he anointed himself in extra virgin olive oil, he got dressed, and we had, his superfood, because we had a blender there, we had a superfood, we had his oatmeal, he had breakfast, he was dressed to the nines, he looked wonderful, he put on a very handsome dark blue suit, some very snazzy shoes, a nice tie, and of course his matching cane. And I ended up calling a cab. I ended up hailing a cab for our transport, because we were all the way down next to the Williamsburg Bridge, essentially. And then we were going all the way up to the Upper East Side, up to 72nd Street. So that was a lot of ground to cover, and I knew it was going to be a long day, because the second event that Bernando had scheduled for the same day was a gathering organized by a wonderful woman named Kafunya Ife, who was also very, very into wellness and very plugged into her community, and actually had hosted Bernando previously for another event back in, I think it was the winter. I want to say it was like about 2009, So she was thrilled that Bernando was coming back to New York City, and really knocked herself out putting together this live in-person lecture and event / birthday party for him at a place that was called, and I've got the flyer here, which is essentially is a payment contract, because Bernando, would also get paid to do his lectures at, it was 570 Fulton Street, 570 Fulton Street in Brooklyn, and it was under the aegis of the Community Acupuncture Clinic and Crystals for Everyday Living. So the start time for that was 5 p.m. and it kind of went on for quite some time, if I recall, right? Got there at 5 and then got him set up, and then he started talking, and then of course there was a Q&A, afterwards, and then Kafunya rolled out this amazing birthday cake, for him that he cut, and then we distributed to all the attendees there before, we got into a car and made our way home. But let's circle back to Talking Alternatives Radio, us taking the taxi cab ride, about 80 blocks or so to the Upper West Side of Manhattan to meet our host, the host of the show, Sam. And I think Josefa, trying to remember if she met us there or if she met us afterwards. So we got up to the studio and, basically stated why this 111-year-old man was in New York City, his hometown, to talk about his new book. And so when Bernando would do these types of interviews, of course, he would explain who he was, where he was born, how old he was, his date of birth, and eventually at some point, and especially on a radio show like the Double Diamond Wellness Hour, that was sponsoring the show, and everyone that was in their community was, very, very interested in health and wellness, would explain as well his career. So his career not only was as a chef, as a cook, as a chef, but eventually he had another career when he opened his own practice in Queens, and he was practicing massage therapy, Swedish massage therapy, and also reflexology, which he had studied at NYU, and podiatry, because he had gotten his podiatry license, which would make him a doctor of podiatry, right? And also he learned a little hair and makeup as well. So that was, a career, or another unfolding of his career in his life, because basically Bernando was the embodiment. He embodied health and wellness. He didn't just talk about it. He lived it. And when he opened his own practice at 72-10 41st Avenue in Jackson Heights in Queens, he was already, my goodness, let me think about this. He went to massage school when he was 69. It took him 2 years to get his certificate. So he was 71 when he completed that. And then around the age of, I want to say around the age of 73 or so, maybe a little bit younger, he decided that he wanted to get into reflexology, because his father had always told him that how important your feet are. And so, having really internalized everything that his father told him, naturally, he wanted to learn reflexology, because if you know anything about reflexology, and if you don't know anything about reflexology, I'll go ahead and I'll find an image and I'll post it in the discussion section where this video is being displayed for this event this evening, so you can see that it really is dealing with the feet and all the pressure points in the feet and where the nerve endings are. And in Chinese medicine, it is revealed that the soles of the feet have points or pressure points that link to every single organ in the body: the heart, the liver, the spleen, the large intestine, the small intestine, aka the colon, the eyes, the ears, and so on. So the work in Chinese medicine is energetic. It's also energetic, and knowing these different things can really make a difference. And of course, because he already was practicing Swedish massage and deep muscle or deep tissue massage, he already had a basic understanding of these principles. He actually told me that when he was studying at NYU, because I was asking him, I was curious to know how his course of study was going at his age in his early 70s. He said, I just sit there and listen. I turn on the tape recorder and I just sit there and listen with rapt attention to the professor. And then when I get home, he would listen to his tape recording again. If anything really struck him, he would make a note in his notebook. And he said the advantage, of being the age that he was that he could actually concentrate and focus on something with unflinching attention, which can be difficult sometimes as a younger person, because your mind is going here and there and you're worried about this and that. But he wasn't like that. So I thought that was fascinating. So he would talk about, his career, and then also eventually, of course, he would return to cooking, and then he became a natural health consultant, and then he became an author, and then he became a lecturer. So that was wonderful. Now somewhere, in my archives. I should have at least a partial recording of that radio interview, so I'm going to try and dig that up. I've moved several times, so things can be a little bit scattered, but that's something to look forward to. So again, we got there at 11, and by the time we finished the conversation, it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And you'll notice that on the schedule here, I said, okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break between 1 and 5. So and I've got some wonderful photos of that, of us, or I should say he and Josefa, because I'm taking the photo, so I'm not in the picture walking, but us walking back up 72nd Street to take the subway back downtown, because you want to try and economize when you are traveling. So there's a subway stop right on Central Park West, which used to be known as 8th Avenue when Bernando was a much, much younger man. And we walked up there and we went down to the subway, and then we took the subway downtown. We returned to the hotel. And then, of course, you know, Bernando would have his lunch at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, always trying to stick to his schedule and not trying to break his routine. So I was trying to be very mindful when I would schedule things that it was not going to disrupt his eating habits. Because as he would say, you know, when you train your body to eat at a certain hour, if you don't eat at that hour, your body is there waiting for it. And what will happen is that, you know, your stomach will start to produce different acids to digest the food that it anticipates coming, because you've trained it to be on a schedule. And then when it doesn't come, then it throws the body off. So that's what we did. So we went back downtown, and if I recall, I had prepared, you know, or had at the ready a lunch that consisted of black beans, brown rice, and, you know, some kind of a green vegetable. So, and of course, Bernando's green tea, you know, green tea, water, that type of thing. And then enough time for him to lay down, you know, and relax, whatever he wanted to do before we prepared ourselves to take another cab ride all the way out to Brooklyn. It's kind of in the downtown Brooklyn area. If anyone has been to New York City, you know that on Flatbush Avenue, not far from where we were at Fulton, but not far from where we were, you might be aware of, you know, Junior's Cheesecake, for example. So that was kind of the area we were around. And also, you know, kind of like, you can get to Fulton Street by taking the 2 or the 3 train, for example. Yeah. So that's what happened. So there was quite the crowd waiting for Bernando when he got to Nicholas, Brooklyn, which was the name of the venue, kind of a big space, community space. And this was so nice because being on the radio, of course, was nice, but actually also being able to be in front of people and talk to people and have them see you speak really made quite an impression on the attendees, because the whole time Bernando was there. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think he actually changed his suit. You know, I never really thought about this before, but now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about the photos from that evening, I'm pretty sure he changed his outfit, and he had another kind of a suit on. So the other thing about Bernando is that my grandfather was a clothes horse. So yeah, that makes sense. So the whole time that he was giving the lecture and talking, he was standing up. He wasn't sitting down. So this is something that he had been doing since when we were at Yankee Stadium. If you recall from the previous video, the vice president of baseball relations wanted to know if Bernando wanted a wheelchair. And Bernando said, no, thank you. He declined that. So he was very sharp and astute, and he realized that just him standing and being able to stand on his own 2 feet while he was talking was really going to make an impression on people, because nothing says youth and nothing says strength like being able to stand on your own 2 feet when you're 111 years old, because everyone expects, you know, when you get to be in your hundreds, that you're feeble, that you've lost your balance, that you're going to be tired, you know, that you don't have the strength, that you don't have good posture, that maybe you have a belly, you know, all these different things that people are conditioned to expect from someone who, my goodness, is even in their 60s, what to speak of a 111-year-old man. So that's how he handled that situation. You know, he told me, as long as I'm standing, literally, I'll be able to sell books. And it did turn out to be a book signing event as well. So Kufunya Ife, who was our hostess, our gracious hostess for the evening, believed she had ordered Bernando's books in advance, just so he wouldn't have to, you know, schlep this type of stuff in his luggage on the airplane. And that way there were books available, you know, for him to sign for any of the guests who were interested in purchasing and having an autographed copy of his books at the conclusion of the evening. So there was that aspect of it as well. So, you know, I'm looking back in time and I'm thinking, you know, we kind of started about 5. Bernando, I think, talked for a solid hour and a half until about 6:30. He was a very engaging speaker. He was a great storyteller. And then there was time for Q&A at the conclusion of that. And then, you know, people wanted their photos taken with him. And then, you know, somewhere around 7:30, that's when this birthday cake came out that Kufunya had arranged for him. But I will say, Bernando didn't eat the birthday cake. But he did go through the ceremony, you know, of appreciating the cake and cutting the cake. And I can't remember whether he blew out any candles or not. That's kind of lost in my mind right now. But Bernando was very fixed in his ways, very disciplined in his ways. And he was not a person who ate sugar, white sugar. The only kind of sweetener that he would have would be honey. He was very adamant about that. He did not use white sugar for himself in his diet. This is something that he shared in common with the great movie star Gloria Swanson. He had actually met Gloria Swanson in Paris in the late 20s when he was there studying in the culinary arts. And Louis Armstrong, who was a friend of his, and Gloria Swanson and him, you know, would hang out together. And one of the things that she and Bernando had in common was that she never touched sugar. She said it was poison. And she attributed her good skin and all of that. You know, one of the things to it was the fact that she stayed away from refined, processed white sugar. Funny story there. Maybe I'll tell you more about that story another time. So that was really it. That was it. I mean, come on. You know, most people, if they had to do one thing like that in a day, you know, do a 2-hour radio show and then walk all the way up the street and take the subway all the way back home and have lunch, you know, they'd kind of be ready to throw in the towel, but not Bernando. So 2 events that day, a 2-hour event in the morning, taking into consideration the travel time back and forth, and then in the evening, an event that went, I mean, it was at least 3 hours long, right? It could have even gone on a little bit farther, and then to go back to the hotel and do his night routine, having his banana to help him sleep. He said eating a banana was a great sleeping pill, and taking care of his feet and just getting ready for the next day, because the next day we had a big lecture planned that was actually going to be in the same venue that we were staying in, which is why I booked the sanctuary and guest suites in the first place, so we could just be efficient in our activity. So, as I said, I am going to post more photos in the discussion. I really wanted to come on here this evening to try and keep in continuity with the timeline as best I could. It is June 6th, so in reality, on June 6th in 2013, at this time, we were at the Slipper Room having a big birthday bash with the Champagne Riot to celebrate Bernando's 112th birthday. That was coming up. So look out tomorrow for a reel that is going to be published with some images of the festivities of that evening, which included a fabulous band, showgirls, and we just had a wonderful time. The MC was a very well-known performer here in New York City who goes by the stage name of Dandy Wellington, which is sort of a combination of our heroes of the Harlem Renaissance, right? Duke Ellington, right? That type of thing, and just that whole tradition of being very well dressed as an African American, and Bernando certainly embodied being well dressed, that's for sure. Just a fun fact, he told me that when he was living in Harlem, that when he was on his way to work, he could hear people saying, "Here he comes, here he comes, he's coming now, he's coming now." He could hear people opening up their windows and people would stick their head out their windows just to see what he was wearing. Just to see what he was wearing as he was on his way out in the morning. So he was quite the clothes horse, and that is something, that self-care and that pride and self-presentation is something that he kept up literally right to the end of his life. He used to say, "I've been dressing like this my whole life. I don't see any reason why I should stop now." So there you have it. So you'll see that a lot of times, people get older and they kind of lose themselves. But Bernando never lost himself, and I think that there's a great lesson in that. So it is now 10:01. I started speaking at 9:30. I want to thank, and I hope I'm saying your name right, I want to thank Yuhar Singh Bhatti for watching this evening. I know we had some other people kind of going in and out here. Thank you very much for being here. I do plan on coming back tomorrow, which is Sunday, June 7th, in New York, to explain a little bit more about Bernando's trip, talk a little bit more about his lecture, some of the people that were involved who helped make that happen. And I thank you very much for being here. Thank you for sticking with me again. My name is Erika, and I am Bernando's oldest grandchild. If it's as hot as where you are, as where I am here in New York City, stay hydrated and drink plenty of water. Good night now.